beautiful thing about sports. You can see somebody come up to the moment.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it.
You can see a team come together. You can see the epic happen.
He's got it. Caught by Boston College.
And when it happens live,
Touchdown!
even if it was scripted, pregame, you would have said, nah, that couldn't happen.
Can you believe it? Oh, he has trouble with the snap. Unbelievable.
That's what I love about sports.
Welcome to Countdown to Game Day, presented by Dr. Pepper. Christine Williamson and Harry Lyles Jr. has never been in this studio before, so welcome, sir.
Thank you. This is like your home turf, and I am happy to be a guest on it.
I mean, it's week 0. It's college football season. How do you feel? Are you
I'm excited. It is here. Yes. Like, this is what we've all been waiting for, and finally we get to just get to the football after talking about everything but the football, right?
Yeah. How much did you miss me?
A ton. I mean, obviously, how could you not?
Just making sure.
Right?
Okay, so we start every show. I mean, I know this is our first show, but we start every single show with something that we like to call the top. And we just talk about the one thing that we're most looking forward to. Usually it's a weekly thing, but because this is the first show of the season, we're going to go big picture.
Okay.
So what do you got for me?
I am most looking forward to who is going to be the team that's going to crash the college football playoff. We know Alabama's going to be there. We know Georgia's probably going to be there. And we know Ohio State's probably going to be there. Who's going to be that team to crash this party? It feels like a good year for that to happen. Obviously, Clemson has been there. They're reloaded this year. They're going to have one of the best defensive lines in all of football. But can a team like Utah live up to their hype? Can USC do it? Can Oregon do it, right? I think you can look at an Oklahoma. They might be able to do it as well. But to me, I think this is a good year for that to happen.
Oh, my gosh. I just love that you said that. Because, like, what if my the top, I just act like the team that I'm about to talk about is going
You notice who I didn't. You notice who I didn't say.
That's why I was about to bust out laughing. You guys couldn't see me. I was going to laugh while he was talking because I feel like it's a perfect time to talk about why it's great to be a Miami Hurricane. Because, I mean, okay, let me just tell you, I do not necessarily think that university, what does it say? I'm ready to believe. I've always believed.
Somebody's got to.
I don't necessarily think that University of Miami is going to crack the CF or break into the CFP this year. I do think that University of Miami is currently rebuilding. Obviously, they have Mario Cristobal there, who is a great coach. I think the key with what Cristobal is trying to do in Miami is like take us back to winning again. He got rid of the turnover chain, which we talked about before.
Yeah.
He's like making the idea of being a Hurricane less gimmicky. And I think that's really important so that they can focus on the football field. Dan Radakovich, the new AD there, he talked about just like literally revamping every single thing in that athletic department. And he was at Clemson before and he was a part of the rebuilding situation in Clemson.
Yeah.
And he said, give me like 3 years and everything is going to be different. And I believe him. Also, a lot of the old heads have bought in, which is very important for University of Miami because they're all about, the history and what we used
100%.
to do. So I'm really excited to just see what Cristobal does.
Yeah, and Radakovich is your boy.
Cristobal, we absolutely love you. Okay, so Miami probably not winning a championship anytime soon, even though I would love that. The team that did, though, Georgia, are they going to be able to do it again? We don't know, but take a look at this.
Demons be gone, and the drought is over. Georgia on the mountaintop at long last.
People have asked the question, how does it feel to be hunted? We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. We didn't build this program on hoping for one-year wonders. We built the program to be sustained.
So let's talk about those dogs and something that we like to call 3 big things. They're their first big thing, and they were a very big thing last season. They won a national championship, obviously. They lost 15 players to the draft, and you remember that game? What game were we at where we were like, these people are wild, like they are grown men?
Oh yeah, Arkansas.
Yeah, when they were playing Arkansas, we were like, what the heck?
The most hilarious beatdown I think we've ever seen. Yeah.
Yes. So we saw 15 of them leave. To go to the NFL, bigger and better. But Are you confident that Georgia will be able to do what they did last season this season?
So, the thing with Georgia last year was, can they get over the hump and actually win the title? And they did. They didn't have one of those choke games that they usually have, and they did it with a historically great defense. Like, they're basically losing an NFL defense, right? Like, they had the top pick. They had just a bunch of guys, a ton of talent, go to the league. Some of those guys are coming back. Jalen Carter is going to be a name that you're going to be hearing a lot this year. I think the difference with Georgia this year is that they're going to have to be better offensively to make up for some of that lost talent, because when you do lose an NFL defense, which again is what that was, you have to make up for that offensively. They're going to have talent that comes in behind that great defense, but when you talk about the offense with Stetson Bennett, you got Brock Bowers, Eric Gilbert, that is going to be a problem for teams no matter what. So if they don't have to play that historically great defense, but if they could play just good defense, they should be in business.
Okay, we'll see what happens in Georgia. Our second big thing, we're talking about the Buckeyes, because I did you see Holly Rowe had a post where she was talking about coming from Buckeyes practice, and she was like, they're really good. She was like very sweaty. She was eating some fruit, but she was talking about how good they were this season. And a lot of people have them as the favorite to win a championship. They lost to Oregon and Michigan last season. They got pushed around by Utah in the Rose Bowl. Are you buying that Ohio State can win a championship this season?
I am, for a couple reasons. I think we did see that while they were getting pushed around in the Rose Bowl, they eventually did come back and show us, hey, like, this is the group that you're going to see in 2022, which was really impressive. That was probably the best Rose Bowl, or one of the best Rose Bowls. I don't want to say it was the best because the old heads will get on me, but that was one of the best Rose Bowls we've ever seen. That offense was incredible. Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to be a problem for teams this year. C.J. Stroud, I think, is the best quarterback in the country. And then when you look at that defense, they still have a ton of talent. You bring in Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State. If they can just improve a little bit on that side of the football, they don't have to be a great defensive team, but if they can kind of meet themselves in the middle from last year, I think that this is a team that can make a push and ultimately get over the hump, because they still won, 11 games last year? Play a little bit better defense, you're in the playoff.
Okay. Okay, so this is, I think, one of the best conversations, because obviously we know the SEC absolutely dominates. The Big 12, Pac-12, and ACC did not have anybody in the CFP last year. Do you think that they can infiltrate the CFP this year? And why is it University of Miami? I'm just kidding. But
well, it's not Miami.
Or Clemson.
So I think Clemson is a very good candidate for this. They've been there. I think they've kind of got a chip on their shoulder. We know that they started off slow last year, and we saw that with the Georgia game, which you were obviously not very happy with.
They're awful.
But they really did recover well last season. I think that was one of Dabo Swinney's best coaching jobs. I mentioned earlier, they're going to have a defensive line that is going to give everybody issues this year. I think the real X factor here is going to be, can DJU kind of turn the corner? I think last year he got in his own head a lot early, and that's a lot of pressure coming off of, mind you, Deshaun Watson and then Trevor Lawrence, where they're two quarterbacks. They fell into those and just kind of put the pieces around them that worked. But I think they've got the talent. Will Shipley's there. I think that they're a team that could do it. I'm not necessarily loving any of the Big 12 teams. And then as far as the Pac-12 goes, I don't know that we're talking about Utah enough. I really do think that they are perhaps, outside of Clemson, the team that can make it. And then when you look at USC, I think the hype is there. I'm buying into it as well. But in terms of a complete package, I don't know that the Trojans are there yet.
Okay, yeah, because a lot of people are hot on Lincoln Riley at USC. You don't think, how in the coaches poll there was that one coach that voted for Texas?
Yes.
You don't think that Texas can come out of the Big 12 and
I don't. I'm not there yet with them. I still need to see more from them. I think they're going to be an improved team. But when I think of Texas right now, I'm thinking maybe 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah.
I don't think that they're ready to make that stride just yet.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so we have a lot of fun stuff coming up on Countdown to Game Day, presented by Dr. Pepper. We've had players and coaches moving this is actually a really good conversation, because we've had players and coaches moving all over the place this offseason. We are going to rate the most impactful offseason moves. We'll talk about that also. We get actual college football today, which is so crazy. I feel like it just crept up on us. So we'll break down the Wildcats and Huskers in Dublin, plus games for Carolina and Florida State. And then Harry and I will take our best guesses at the over-unders from some of the top programs in college football. right, so if there's been any constant this offseason, like I mentioned, it has been change. There have been 30 new head coaches, over 30 new head coaches, and somewhere around 3,000 players entered the transfer portal. So there was a lot going on. I know there's a lot to keep up with. Don't worry, I've got you covered. Take a listen to this. Despite their loss to the Dogs, the Tide added a trio of transfer portal players because
last year we had kind of a rebuilding year.
Meanwhile, Jordan Addison left Pitt to go have fun in the LA Sun, which everyone was totally cool with.
I'm focused on our guys that are, that want to be here at Pitt.
They say the best things come in threes, and that's the case over at USC. Quinn Ewers took his luscious locks down where staying weird is encouraged. Talk about creating space. You couldn't get further away than Mario Cristobal did when he literally went coast to coast. And how could we forget the time when Brian Kelly picked up his family and picked up a Southern accent along the way? But that's not all. Adrian Martinez is at K-State now. Jackson Dart traded one Grove for another and is joined at Ole Miss by TCU's Zach Evans. Spencer Rattler is now a Gamecock, and Dylan Gabriel is now a Sooner. Yeehaw! Brandon Joseph traded purple for Irish gold, and the Gators added half a dozen transfers. Got all of that? Yeah, us either. Were you able to keep up with that?
It was a lot.
It was a lot.
But, I think I got it.
Okay, good. So our guy, Harry Douglas, was not able to be with us today, but we did want to get on the conversation and talk about some of the most impactful moves that we ourselves feel like happened during the college football offseason. So we're going to start with the most impactful coaching move, and HD is going to hold us down first. Harry, who do you have?
Yeah, Christine, I'm going to start on the coaching side of things with the University of Miami and Mario Cristobal. Not only is he from that area, but he played for the University of Miami in the late 80s, early 90s, won a national championship there in 1989 and 1991. So if there's anyone who understands and knows the standards of that program, it's going to be head coach Mario Cristobal. He's going to be able to recruit very, very well down in South Florida and keep those guys from going to other universities and staying actually right there at home. I love what he's been able to do with his coaching staff. You talk about guys like Jason Taylor, Ed Reed, Josh Gaddish. He was able to get him on the offensive side of the ball from the University of Michigan. So I'm looking forward to seeing if Mario Cristobal can once again have the University of Miami be the U.
I love Harry so much. Because he said that. I totally agree. I think the biggest thing with Cristobal, though, in Miami, and the biggest thing with Miami fans in general, or just Miami culture, right, is the fact that we are very nostalgic, right? Yep. We really live in the early 2000s, which is why all the old heads always come back. So I think the biggest thing for when it comes to fans and like just old heads and players to buy in is whether or not Cristobal is actually able to establish a culture that people can buy into. Obviously, he's going to do what he's going to do on the football field, but I think really establishing Miami's culture because it's been so strong is going to be the most important thing. And I think he's able to do that because, like Harry said, he played there in the 80s. He's used to it. He understands what goes into that. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing because it's great to be a Miami Hurricane.
It will be, in theory.
No, it's always great to be a Miami Hurricane.
Is it?
100%. Don't even question that. Am I going next or is
You certainly didn't feel that way. Like, what was it, like week 2 last year?
I totally felt that way. I just didn't talk about it as much because I didn't want to. I was crying.
I wouldn't either.
It's so great. You can cry about it.
Yeah, I feel you.
But it's so great. Who do you have? For your most impactful
I got Lincoln Riley. I do think Mario Cristobal, jokes aside, is going to be good for that program, but I got Lincoln Riley. I feel like USC is a program that should just never be down. Like, this is just based on the history, the location, everything that you have there. And when you look at what Lincoln Riley was able to do at Oklahoma, you have a couple of Heisman winners, another finalist, and then you had 3 college football playoff appearances. This is the type of guy, especially with his offense, that you need in a place like USC. This is just a program that should truly never be down. Like, that is a hard job to mess up. When you have him, you look at the transfers that he brought in, Caleb Williams, Jordan Addison, a bunch of other guys. I think that's going to take some time to get back to where they actually need to be. But in terms of what he's going to be able to do, USC hasn't had a coach that has made USC since Pete Carroll, right? We see Snoop Dogg on the sideline, right? A bunch of different celebrities. Like, that is what USC has to be if they're going to be great. Like, that is part of what you have to offer. I think that he's going to be able to get them back to that point. I think the move to the Big Ten is going to be interesting, and that's a little wrinkle in that job I don't know that he necessarily knew he was going to get.
Right.
But I do think that he is finally going to be the guy that is going to put USC back to where they're supposed to be.
And I think them going to the Big Ten is going to be great for the program in general, especially for him because he's used to being not on the West Coast and having those, very late games, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it'll be great. Okay, I just want to mention really fast before Cologne tells me to move on to the next thing that I'm really excited to see what Brent Venables does in Oklahoma because he's never been a head coach. Obviously, he's coached under some amazing head coaches, including Dabo Swinney and Bob Stoops. So I'm just very excited to see what he's going to do in Oklahoma. Okay, let's go on Harry.
Wow.
Listen, there's 2 Harrys. I feel like I just want to change the first letter of the name. To, what are we doing next? Most impactful quarterback transfer.
Next, from the quarterback perspective, I'm going to go with Caleb Williams, who transferred from Oklahoma out to the West Coast, Southern California. Yes, he followed Lincoln Riley, which wasn't a bad idea. We know the history he has in quarterbacks being drafted number 1 overall in the National Football League. But you talk about a guy who's a dual threat, very, very instinctive. I know USC, Southern California, is happy to have him, but not just him, Lincoln Riley as well.
Caleb Williams. I mean, he's Lincoln Riley's guy. That's pretty exciting. Who do you have as their most impactful?
I love the Caleb Williams pick. I am going to go with Spencer Rattler.
Oh my gosh, we're just keeping the light skin ball rolling.
Yeah, I mean, you got to represent, baby. You know what I'm saying? But look, I think Spencer Rattler, he had a rough year last year, especially with everything that went on, losing his job to Caleb Williams after being a Heisman favorite. I think a new start for him is going to be good. I think when you look at what Shane Beamer was able to do last year at South Carolina, he got a lot out of a team that a lot of people didn't have any expectations of. I think that fresh start, he's still an incredible arm talent. Look at that football, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he has a truly great arm. I think as long as he can get that fresh start, he's going into a different offense. I think that he will be okay, and that will kind of help him get that right.
Right.
Because he still is talented.
I feel like he just had the yips last year. This is the same thing that I feel like happened to DJU. I feel like he just had a lot of pressure on him, and he didn't know what to do with that pressure, and just for some reason mentally was unable to perform. So I feel like, yes, I feel like the Lightskins are going to have an amazing season. And I will say the guy that's replacing him and Caleb Williams at Oklahoma is Dylan Gabriel, and I'm really excited to see what he does at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I feel like it's tough, right? Because he's coming after guys like, if we don't count Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, guys, that was called quarterback U for a long time because of the amount of guys that were coming out of there. I was looking at what, not Lincoln Riley, Brent Venables was saying about him as a quarterback, and he was comparing him to Sam Bradford and not like Baker Mayfield and those guys, which I find very interesting because it's a different leadership style. So I'm just curious to see if he's able to live up to the hype that has been established at Oklahoma.
And I do think that he's built for that. When I say we, me, Matt Berry, and Roddy Jones had their first game last year against Boise State, and I can tell you that dude was going through it. It was tough, but he's built for that Big 12 play.
Okay, we'll see what happens.
He's a tough guy.
Okay, the next one, HG, most impactful non-quarterback transfer.
And last but not least, I'm going to go with running back Jamir Gibbs, who transferred from Georgia Tech to the University of Alabama. And you talk about hitting home runs. Nick Saban hit one with this guy right here. Not only can he break tackles at the running back position and beat guys to the end zone for touchdowns, you can line him out wide in the pass game where he was very efficient, and he's shown that throughout his career. And you can also line him out on returns and be scared that he's going to take the distance if you're the opposing team. So Nick Saban, once again, last year and this year, hit home runs in the transfer portal.
That's a good place to go.
Yeah, and it's tough for my boys over at Georgia Tech losing Jamir Gibbs. I'm going with Jordan Addison. He was the Biletnikoff winner last year. Kenny Pickett was his quarterback, and this is by no means a dig at Kenny Pickett, but his quarterback's going to be Caleb Williams this year.
Right.
I mean, Jordan Addison is a true talent at the position, and I think people are really going to realize that in a way that perhaps they didn't last year because he's going to be in a much more visible place. So to me, I love the Jordan Addison addition. I think that it's going to be a benefit to him, obviously playing with Caleb Williams and vice versa. So to me, that's a good way to kick things off for USC.
You're just really hot on USC. I feel like you keep talking
Not too
about
hot,
USC.
Though. I do like what they're doing, though.
And like
hold on now. Let's not get carried away.
You talked about Utah, whatever. Okay, anyways.
Okay.
I'm going to say Jermaine Burton quite simply because I feel like it's an interesting storyline, number one, because, I mean, he wasn't like their guy at Georgia, but he transfers from Georgia to Alabama. And I just feel like Obviously, it's a lot different offense. He has a lot different quarterback. He's not going to be with Bryce Young, which I find very interesting for him. Georgia, I feel like for Jermaine specifically Alabama specifically is going to be great because they have a lot of wide receivers that go to the league, and I feel like he's going to be able to elevate his game. So I'm just excited to see what he does at Alabama. Okay, so since we're on the subject, you were on the subject of USC, and you're talking about how much you love USC. Apparently, that's
is that what I said?
Year. Yes.
Interesting.
Since we're on the subject, Eli Manning wanted to go check out what they're doing at USC also, just like everybody else is curious. So take a look.
I feel naked.
Yeah, kinda. Numbers are earned, Eli. Did you really think you can get a graduate degree without passing a few tests?
I did at Ole Miss.
Let's see what you got. Now boy, push.
You steal this from outside a target?
Go.
If a giant lifesaver is ever trying to score a touchdown, I'm the man. Do I get to wear number 55 if I dive through the hole?
You'll be lucky if I give you 00.
Wow, Eli looks small. Explore the expansive world of college football through the eyes of Eli Manning on season 2 of Eli's Places, streaming now exclusively on ESPN+. Is that a weird thing to say?
No, I mean, I guess it's fair.
Okay, coming up on Game Day at 10:30 a.m., Reese, Des, Kirk, and Pollock will break down the season for Clemson and the optimism surrounding the Tigers this year. There's a lot of it. I mean, hopefully, DJ,
We gonna see.
10:45 a.m. It's now been over 1,000 days since Ohio State beat Michigan, but the Buckeyes are poised to come roaring back. What makes OSU so confident this season? That's a very interesting question. And at 11:25 a.m., Cincinnati ran the table and crashed the college football playoff last season. Can Houston do the same and make it 2 in a row for the group of 5? I actually find that very interesting to be a question today. Okay,
Yeah.
And at noon today, just over 2 hours from now, we have actual college football. It's Northwestern and Nebraska. They're facing off in Dublin, Ireland.
Interesting.
Harry's really excited about that. Here's a fun fact, though. Roger Sherman on Twitter pointed this out, that people learning to drive in Ireland have to put a big block in sticker on the back of their car, and it looks just like the Nebraska logo.
You know what's funny about that is at least last year, Nebraska was also learning how to drive as well, and it didn't go very well.
That was going to be my next question. So actually, both of these teams were 3-9 last season. Who do you think would be removing their in sticker from their car? Like they're no longer a novice.
Maybe Northwestern. I think Nebraska is going to be better this year. I also just want to shout out all the fans from both teams that are going to this game, right? I mean, like truly though, like. I'm joking, but also kind of not joking. You have to love college football to go across the pond. Not if my team went 3-9 last year and was playing a team that also went 3-9 last year.
It's an excuse to go to Ireland.
I personally have never been like, hey, brother, you know where I need to go? Ireland.
Dublin.
But I mean, it is a cool experience though, and like this is a big game for both of these teams going across the pond. That's a cool experience. I do think that Nebraska is going to be improved this year and will probably have a better record. They had 8 really close losses last year. They bring in Casey Thompson from Texas. Mark Whipple, their OC, was at Pittsburgh last year. And then with Northwestern, they're going to be improved defensively, which is, usually their staple, and they can stay in a game like that. So I think this one will be interesting. I think both teams really need this game. And whoever doesn't win, that's going to be a long trip home, ain't it?
Gosh, that snow looks absolutely awful. Okay, so what would be qualify a successful season for Nebraska?
I would just say anything that's good enough to not get Scott Frost fired at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I feel like if they...
But what is that? 8
wins.
Okay.
8 wins is good for Nebraska. That should be kind of their wheelhouse. Anywhere between 8 to 10 wins.
So Caesars Sportsbooks has them at 7.5 wins this season. So they need the over.
I think they will get over, yeah, because their first half of their schedule is pretty easy aside from playing Oklahoma.
Okay.
Like, I think if my memory serves me right, they should be able to go 6 or 7-1 before they have to start playing real football.
Okay, let's talk about Florida State. I hate talking about Florida State, but we can do it. They play their opener this afternoon. They went 7-6 in 2017 and have had a losing season ever since, which is why I do actually like talking about them. They have added 14 transfers via the portal this offseason, and Mike Norvell says he's excited about where they are heading. I don't understand when people like Norvell say Florida State is back, because I'm like, from going where?
Yeah.
But what do you think qualifies a good season for Florida State?
The bar has been so low. I mean, again, it feels like they're in a similar position as Nebraska. If they can get 8 wins, I think that if you're a Florida State fan, you take that. And I mean, honestly, you can't really take this game as just like a softball because guess what? They lost to an FCS team last year as well.
Yeah.
Right? So I think with Florida State, you're really just playing from behind and have been playing from behind. And this year, I think the one thing, if you are an FSU fan and you're playing this game against Duquesne, the one thing that you need to see, because this isn't going to be a game, right, where we can actually be like, oh, this is how good Florida State is.
Yeah.
You need to see that high-flying offense that you brought in Mike Norvell for.
Right.
If you don't start seeing that this year, then I think you got to start asking yourself some questions about, all right, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to UNC because they were 6-1 last season. What qualifies a good season for Mac Brown?
Better than last year? I mean, like...
That's the bar?
Yeah, well, look, last year I feel like was a disappointment, right?
Yeah.
Like, you had Sam Howell. Obviously, he lost literally all of his skill guys were NFL players. So that's tough, and, I think a lot of people didn't take that into account. I think Drake May is going to come in and be good. They have weapons on offense that were better than last year. I think defensively this team is going to take a step up. Obviously against a FAMU team that's only going to have 7 healthy offensive linemen. This is another case where it's like, hey, this is going to be a real test for them. But if you're North Carolina, you take this game to kind of figure out what your team's going to look like going into the season.
Right. Okay, cool. We'll see what happens there. We talked about ACC teams. ACC's interesting. Anyways.
It's a word for it.
Let's, we like to talk about your light-skinned friends, and you've talked about Caleb Williams and Spencer Rattler, but we got to talk a little bit more about Caleb Williams. Take a look at this.
Caleb Williams, he's got nothing but top bull grass. 15-10-5, it's a touchdown.
We came here to win championships. This is USC. You don't come here for any other reason.
A beauty from Caleb Williams. Oh, mama!
We're not losers if we don't want to lose. We made our decision to come here and turn it back around to what it was.
Would you ever paint your nails, Harry? Can we please do that?
No, that's not my.
That. No, that'd be so cool on you. Okay.
maybe like middle of the season.
That'd be so freaking cool.
It's still week 0. We gotta ease into this.
You should paint your nails based on the matchup that we're going to. Like one hand for each team. That'd be so amazing. Everybody tweet Harry and tell him.
We'll workshop that. We'll workshop that.
We only have a few minutes left in the show. We're gonna go through some over/under win totals, and all of these are courtesy of Caesars Sportsbook. Okay, USC 9.5 wins. Just so you know, here's a note. They finished 4-8 last season. Obviously, they hired Lincoln Riley, and obviously everyone transferred there, and obviously this is your team. So what do you got?
I'm going over. I think their toughest games are at Utah, at UCLA, and against Notre Dame, and I think that they can get 1 or 2 of those games, so I'm going to go over here.
And also their quarterback has, like, cool nails.
Yeah, I guess so. Apparently something I need to do. So
you need to do that. We're going to do that very soon. I agree with this. I do find it interesting that, like, they're not the favorite to win the Pac-12, even though people are, like, very hype on what they're going to do out in Southern California, but I just think it'll be interesting to see what Lincoln Riley is able to do out there. All right, let's go Michigan. 9.5 wins. They obviously finished 12-2 last season, lost to Georgia in the college football playoff semis. It wasn't pretty, but over, under. How do you feel about it?
I'm sorry, Chris Cologne. I'm going under. They have to go to Iowa. They get Penn State, Michigan State at home, which is good, but they also have to go to Columbus. I think this team takes a step back, unfortunately, for our good friend Chris, but I still think that they're going to be in every single game that they play, except honestly for maybe that one in Columbus, because I think Ohio State is well and truly going to have it out for them.
Everybody that's a Michigan fan or alum should just be happy that we're not talking about whether or not Harbaugh should be fired. Like, how about that is a good thing. All right. Deep in the heart of Texas, 8.5 wins. They finished 5-7 last year. They were once, I feel bad for saying this, but they're not back. They weren't back. How do you feel about?
I'm going under. I got to see it. I'll give them 8 wins, but again, until they prove it, I'm not ready to jump on that yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Florida, 7 wins. Last year they finished 6-7, just 2-6 in the ACC or SEC. And I find it very interesting that the only team that finished worse than them in the SEC was Vanderbilt, who had 0 wins. How do you feel about them?
I'm going to go over, just over. I think they're going to steal a couple of games that perhaps they shouldn't win. Billy Napier's doing a good job over there, but it's going to take time.
All right, and now we go to Notre Dame, who they have a new head coach. They finished 11-2 last season, lost to Oklahoma State in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. They are at 8.5.
I'm going over. I think they're going to, obviously have a tough time with Ohio State, Clemson, and USC,
right.
But I think that they can get one of those. I'm going to go over with them.
Yeah, we will be at the Ohio State game. We'll see how that goes. Now we go to LSU.
And my family.
7 wins. They finished 6-7 last season. They were 3-5 in the SEC. They have a new coach with a new accent.
Yeah, many. I'm going to go over.
Okay.
8.
What?
8. That's how Brian Kelly would say 8 in his little southern accent.
Oh, you're saying 8. I thought you were saying like AITE, like
no,
8.
8.
And I was like, okay, thank you. Now, the greatest of all, as you know, University of Miami, they're at 8.5 right now. They finished 7-5 last season, second in the ACC Coastal. They're going to obviously win the Coastal this season and maybe even the ACC. How do you feel about it?
I'm just going to go over just so you're nice to me the rest of the day. How about that?
Thank you.
That's my reason.
They have TVD.
Yeah,
you know
boy.
What? It's really funny about having TVD, and I know we have to hurry up because the show's over, but TVD, there's also a guy on their coaching staff named DVD. He's DeMarcus Van Dyke. He played when I was there.
Really?
Isn't that funny? Yeah.
Look at that.
Anyways, go watch some college football. Go watch College Gameday.
Welcome back.
Thank you for watching Countdown to Game Day presented by Dr. Pepper. We will be here every single week. You're welcome. We'll see you next time.
You're welcome.